Well, hello everyone. This is Chrystal Lynn, and thank you for joining my channel. Tonight, I am super excited about this up and coming series that I will be doing, talking about the generational planets. Now, I know from you guys looking at my title, you might wonder, how in the world does this topic tie in to astrology? I mean, come on. There's no way these two could be compatible. But here is the really cool thing for those of you out there who do follow astrology. You will totally get this. For those of you out there who are watching this for the first time, don't run away. All I am doing is mapping out the storyline. As the planets shift, as things happen, we experience different generational energies. It's that simple. It's not crazy. We're not worshiping the planets. We're not, into some deep, dark thing. Astrology has been an ancient art from the beginning of time. And just like religion, government, how we live, what we believe in, all of these things over time, we all can agree change. And so what I want to share with you guys today is, I think, a really amazing and like a phenomenon of what happened during a very specific period of time and how that is affecting us today. Okay, so I'm not only going to talk about history, I'm going to talk about where we are right now. Now, I am going to be focusing on the Pluto and Virgo generation. This is a period of time for those of you born from 1957 to 1972. Now, if you were not born during those years, don't go away, because I'm going to be talking about you guys too. But to understand the movement, the Jesus movement, we have to understand this period of time, and those of us, I myself included, who were born, again, 1957 to 1972, how much we were affected by this psychologically. And for many of us out here today, the Pluto and Virgo generation, there are many people still very lost coming out of this movement. And so I want to talk about that today. Where can we find ground now that we're having to look at some things? So first of all, it's a lot of information. That's why this may be several videos of this, if you guys like these kind of topics. To understand this specific movement, we have to understand Pluto, okay? Pluto is a very small planet up in the sky. You guys can do your own research on Pluto. But astrologically, what we know about Pluto is that Pluto really is volcanic, and it seeks the truth. It's very spiritual, and it roots things out. It has us really look at ourselves. Pluto represents the cycle of death and rebirth. So there's a period of time where Pluto is focused in a certain area to help all of us in a generation to understand a deep psychological and spiritual concept. So when we look at Pluto generations, okay, Pluto takes about 15 to 20 years, moves very slowly. When we look at these generations, it helps us to understand the psychological and spiritual mindset behind people that are born during this time. Now, because we're born during a certain time doesn't mean we come into our fullness of that energy. It takes a lifetime for that to be triggered. It's like an astrological DNA, okay, an energetic DNA. And when things are happening up in the sky today, it can trigger certain generations to come to the forefront. And when this happens, the generation that is being asked to come to the front lines, has to go through this death and rebirth transformation, because, we all were raised with certain belief systems. We all, maybe entered into certain belief systems wholeheartedly. And maybe right now we're all kind of wondering what the heck is going on, because we've seen, the tear down of everything we've ever known to be true. And I'll kind of I'll go into that a little bit more. So I want to talk about the Jesus movement. I don't know how many of you guys out there know what I'm talking about. This was a period of time really from 1963 to 1968. There was a lot going on in our world during that time. This is also a period of time that Uranus and Pluto were conjunct in Virgo. So Uranus represents rebellion. Uranus represents radical change. Uranus represents, blowing out of the old systems. Now, to understand this period of time, you kind of have to understand a little bit what was happening before. So during the Pluto in Cancer generation, okay, which is most of our parents, people who were in their 80s, 70s and 80s, they were definitely raised with a lot more structure. Family was first. The family was everything. Security, much more conservative. And so when it comes to spirituality and going to the church, you dressed your best and you put on your best shoes because you didn't want to, not honor the Lord in any way by being your best, and really showing this family that's perfect. Okay, the Cleaver family, okay, is very common, and it was this perfect unit. And everybody went to church together, and, nobody talked about their problems, very private, period. And then, again, I'm kind of going to push it up a little bit here quickly, because I want to stick with the main topic, and, this is so exciting, it's hard for me to stay with it, so I even have notes, you guys, so bear with me. Then we move into the Pluto in Leo generation. And it's important to understand this generation. This generation became before, okay, the Pluto and Virgo generation, so 1957, go all the way back to about 1938. Okay, so 1938 to 1957 is the Pluto and Leo generation. And they were the ones that didn't want to have to scrimp like their parents and make something out of nothing. They wanted to be the ones to go, we're entitled. We're amazing. We want it all. A lot of the Pluto and Cancer parents really raised their Pluto and Leo children, giving them everything that they didn't have. Because if you think back to the Pluto in Cancer generation, that was a period of time when, it was during the Depression. It was during times when people literally had nothing, lost everything, security, their homes gone. So by the time we move into the Pluto and Leo generation, now we're wanting to really give our children everything we didn't have. And so we're kind of raising a group of entitled people. And they also have this powerful need to get out there politically, the movie industry, rock and roll. I mean, we get into, some of the most incredible musicians, film, acting, all of those things was just rising to the top. So, now we need to move into the Pluto in Virgo generation in 1957. And now, you got to understand Virgo energy for a minute, okay? Because we know that Leo is ruled by the sun. So they want to be in the front. They want to express. They want to have a good time. They want to party. They want it all. But now here comes our little Pluto and Virgo generation. Little more humble, okay? Little more humble. And we're more interested in what is going on with the earth, with the world. What are you guys doing over here? You're not respecting the earth. If we don't have the earth and we don't tend to the earth, we're not going to have this amazing world. And so you get this big movement of the hippie movement, where everything is, we're all one, we're all together. The problem is that Virgo tends to be very controlled mentally. Okay, I'm a Virgo, so I know. And we don't like to be out of control. mentally or psychologically. We're always trying to put it back in that Rubik's Cube, okay, which, by the way, was part of the Pluto and Virgo generation. The Rubik's Cube came out during that time. Of course, because it's putting the pieces together. We got to fix everything these guys did before us now. We're the servants. We work with our hands. We have humility. We don't want to be incredible. We want to serve. We want to bring together. We want to tend. And so you have this huge movement of entrepreneurship, self-employment, all of those things. But during this specific time, okay, I get a little ahead of myself there, talking about as the Pluto and Virgo generation grew, became a very, huge time for entrepreneurship, the construction workers, the hairstylists, the dog groomers, the restaurant owners. This is the Pluto and Virgo generation a little further down the road. But the time that this energy was the most powerful, and we were born into it, okay, was from 1963 to 1968, because we had a very powerful Uranus-Pluto conjunction. I was born in 1968. I was actually born under Sun, Jupiter, Uranus, and Pluto conjunction in Virgo. Okay, another topic. But that's why I'm out here talking about this today, because I know us. I know what we are going through. So during this time, the other thing that was happening in the background, we're going to kind of talk about this as a story, okay? The other thing that was going on in the background was Neptune had moved into Scorpio. Okay, I was also born in the Neptune-Scorpio generation. Now, Neptune was in Scorpio 1956 to 1970, 14-year transit. Neptune represents our spirituality. And Scorpio represents, let's get into the truth. Because remember, we always have to look back to understand what's happening now. Prior to that, our parents raised us during the Neptune and Libra generation. Don't tell anybody your problems. Everything's fine. We look like a happy family. We have the dog, the cat, the picket fence. The husband goes to work. The children go to school. We do Girl Scouts, brownies, very perfect outer image. Nobody ever talked about some of the deep, dark psychological things going on behind the scenes, child abuse, molestation, drugs, So during this Neptune and Scorpio time, all of a sudden, people's psychological well-being starts to bubble to the surface. This is also a time when fear is setting in, okay? Fear is setting in. We've had, John F. Kennedy assassinated. We have major war issues going on. We're very unsettled. And Scorpio, Neptune and Scorpio really is all about death and, fear of death, fear of punishment, fear of being alone. So we have this psychological energy going on, and, it also is opening up, all kinds of, interest in different sexual preferences, sexual situations, opening up, drugs, your mind, so we have this movement of people literally running around, fearful, trying to capture something, feeling alone, feeling empty, because Scorpio energy has a way of isolating and getting us to really look at ourselves. But when you have a collective, that we don't know how to look at ourselves. During this time, the rock and roll bands that are coming out, the deep dark stuff, all right? We've got AC/DC, and we've got Iron Maiden and Ozzy Osbourne, and they're ripping heads off of bats and talking about hell and wanting to go there and making it look good, okay? Because Neptune and Scorpio is all about looking at the other side. And, we've all just been raised by parents from the Neptune and Libra energy coming through. And so It's intriguing to us. But at the same time, it's creating a lot of fear. It's creating a lot of confusion. It's creating a lot of emptiness. And so it's creating a prime opportunity for a movement such as the Jesus movement to come in. Now, what is the Jesus movement? Now, I'm from Southern California, okay? And I was raised in the Calvary Chapel Jesus movement, all right? There ended up being over 2,000, I'm still out there, 2,000 churches worldwide based on this one movement in Costa Mesa, California. Chuck Smith, rest in peace, was the pioneer of this period. And he had been a pastor that had, followed the ministry, going along church to church to church, nothing quite happening until he got a job in Costa Mesa, California. And I'm just telling you a little bit about the story because it's important to really understand how these things happen. And at that time, they had teenagers. And so during that time, Harbor High and a lot of those surrounding areas were all of these little lost hippies. These hippies, okay, that were moving into the Pluto and Virgo energy were born in the Pluto and Leo generation. Okay, so they had already kind of found out that ego and having it all wasn't quite as satisfying as maybe they thought it should be. So we have this storm happening now. We have all of these people that have, filled themselves up. And then we've got Neptune and Scorpio with this psychological quest for what's on the other side. And we have Pluto and Virgo going, hey man, we gotta get bound together. We gotta come together. And we have the perfect opportunity for a movement such as this. So here we have Chuck Smith. You can actually look him up. He did pass away about 2 years ago. And he has a real fascinating chart too. He was a Cancer. So, you have Father Chuck, this pastor that, it was the tent setting, all right? Because it was like, we're not wearing our Sunday best anymore, okay? You can come in as you are. In fact, you can come in barefoot because you need something that we have, and we have Jesus. The other thing that you have to understand at that time was hippies were considered really, don't mess with those guys. They're dirty hippies, all right? They don't wear shoes. They're smoking pot. They're on acid, and they were. So the church at this time, this movement really saw that there was this huge vacuum, this huge need, that people were empty. They were looking for something, okay? And, this was the perfect opportunity. So Chuck Smith and his wife had teenagers, and she wanted to meet a hippie. And at that time, like I said, they were from an older generation, so it was really odd to them. But their kids were hanging out with these hippies, and they didn't want their kids to do drugs. And so sure enough, they start inviting these kids to the church. And, at one point, there's a story that they talk about, where there was carpet in the church later on when they got their first building. And, all of the parishioners were complaining because the hippies were coming in barefoot. And Chuck said, I don't care, get rid of the carpet. This movement is happening. And so, oh my gosh, it was the most incredible period of time. It was a rush. It was a high. And as we move forward to really understand how this played out, okay, you want to take a look at the fact, if we want to look at a generation, then in astrology we could say that generation, for example, being Virgo, that Virgo is the ascendant of that generation. Okay, let's take a look at it. I think you'll see the storyline unfold, which then would put the second house, values, how to make money, okay, for this Pluto and Virgo generation, in the second house in Libra. Okay, so what began to happen during this movement that was happening? It really was powerful from 1963. It started and was like getting at its peak at 1968. Music came in. Music. Powerful people from all over the place now. These hippies, all right, experiencing this second house energy in Libra. Music is the answer to soothe all of our souls. So now you take these churches from the previous generations that had very formal music and women weren't allowed to sing and there was the organ and it was very controlled. Now you blow all that out of the water with this second house Libra energy, because we know that Venus rules music. And music began to be this powerful wave of energy. Okay, powerful wave of energy. And so these churches begin to catch on to this wave, all right? This Jesus movement now is catching on to this wave that music heals. Music is the answer. And so you have huge, powerful groups of people, kumbaya, working into this meditative state. Because when you put lots of people together, I don't care what kind of music you're playing, it's very powerful, it's very spiritual. And so this was a different type of music. It was very uniting, all right, because it was in Libra energy. And so now, you're bringing these people together. And they've already kind of realized that sex, drugs, and rock and roll wasn't quite working out. So it's not that they didn't know if there was anything else they could do. This came along in a way that, they were just prime for. Okay, it was a prime time. The other issue being with Neptune and Scorpio, there was a lot of fear, conspiracies, what was going on, the end of the world. So people were very afraid. So now when you take this energy, this Pluto and Virgo generational period that this was happening in, okay, we're looking at now the third house of communications, of communities. Neptune fueling that with Scorpio energy, along with the third house energy being in Scorpio. So everybody's talking. You need Jesus, otherwise you're going to go to hell. You need Jesus, otherwise you're going to go to hell. So now we have this fear. Now, I want to say something before I continue on. I kind of wanted to say this at the beginning, but there was so much going on in my mind, I just had to do this video. Had to jump out here. I want to make it really, really clear that this video that I'm doing right now is not in any way a debate or an attack on anybody's faith. Okay, I was raised with Jesus. I love Jesus. Okay, but I am talking about the psychological background of movements that happen and often leave people kicked out on the curb or left, when radical changes happen, don't know how to function. Our generation right now, we were born in that time, we're about, 40, 45, to 55 in there, at least the people that I'm, really connected to. And we're really struggling because that foundation, that movement, that high, that energy, that, did we drink the Kool-Aid is dissipating to the past, and we're faced with a world that we have today, and many people don't know what to do. So that is why I'm doing this video, is to help us understand. No, you weren't crazy. We went through a movement. It was powerful in nature. If you were a part of it, that's fantastic. But where are we now? How do we move forward? Because that movement is passing. And I'll explain more why it is falling apart now, as it will. Because Pluto is, a birth, a death, and a rebirth. Okay, this was birth during this time. We needed this during this time. Now, at that time, the fourth house was in, for this generation, the fourth house energy is in Sagittarius, okay? The fourth house energy in Sagittarius really brought us home, to home Bible studies, to having a home teacher in the home, to bringing together groups and learning under masters during that time. How many times do we see, the signs, and I've had them too, Jesus is the leader of my home. We needed a guru in our home. We needed something bigger than us, because we didn't know how to be a family. We needed to follow underneath these guidelines, this guru, this teacher, this wisdom, our pastors, our churches. Okay, Sagittarius is the preacher. All right, so we all became mini preachers in our home. Now, for the first time, because of the Jesus movement during the Uranus and Pluto in Virgo generation, this is the first time that the church is allowing the common person to really read the Bible. Follow along with the Bible. You read the Bible for yourself. Everybody's got a Bible in their hand. Everybody's writing in their Bibles. Remember? Everybody's taking notes. And at this time, we have access now to what they know. But yet we still need that teacher. We still are looking for that guru. Okay? Now, with the Pluto and Virgo generation, they also have the fifth house in Capricorn energy. Okay, so Capricorn is structure. Capricorn is compartmentalizing. Capricorn is making buildings. Fifth house is how we express our beliefs, how we express what we love. It's our relationships on another level. It's once we go out of our home, where do we go to next? So what happened? The rise of the megachurch, okay, which is why I talked earlier about this Calvary Chapel movement. The rise of this megachurch. We're no longer having little Bible studies in our homes where everyone can be connected and everybody can serve and everybody knows everybody, which was so compelling to us, right? Using the biblical example of, the Pentecost, when they're all up in the upper room and they receive the Holy Spirit. This was really what this Jesus movement was based on, was these intimate groups, everybody having unity. And so all of a sudden, okay, and again, moving out of Neptune and Scorpio, moving through Neptune and Sagittarius, which a lot of these preachers arose during this time, moving into Neptune in Capricorn, really ignited the fifth house energy of the Pluto in Virgo generation. It's a lot to navigate, you guys. Hang with me. And I apologize if I make a mistake. Hopefully you guys will catch it, know it. But I'm talking about these energies, trying to explain how they interweave together, all right? And how and where it brings us today. So during this Neptune in Capricorn now, we're going to bump it up a little bit. That period of time was 1985 to 1998, okay? That's when you see the rise of the megachurch, the billion-dollar churches, all of these preachers, okay, that are now rising up. They're rising up to these huge churches, these huge pastors. Everybody's following them. Of course, we're not following the pastor. We're following Jesus. But you have all these little mini stamps everywhere with these mega churches. Well, who are these preachers? These preachers are from the Pluto and Leo generation before us. Okay, just like right now, the political world is still being dominated by the Pluto and Leo generation. That's why we're like, oh my God, it's so narcissistic. The Pluto and Virgo generation are the next ones up, but we're being prepared right now, and we'll talk about that. So you now have the megachurch. You no longer need the average church member, the little Bible studies, the little small churches, the little small, Sunday schools where the average person is teaching and serving. That's when you have power in a group, when everybody's doing hands-on, when everybody's a part of it and nobody's getting paid, okay? That's when you kind of really have that true serviceability. But as the megachurch grew, what happened? As the megachurch grew, they needed to start dealing with legal issues. They needed to start hiring staff, hiring pastors, hiring the members. Now you work for the church, okay? And you can get fired. So you have to make sure that you are connected to the belief system of the church, which filters down really from these leaders, these pastors. And so soon you start getting this kind of disgruntled energy going, all right? Because the once movement of everybody together and everybody serving and, really what the Pluto and Virgo energy is all about But because we're being dominated and the top of the line is still the Pluto and Leo generation, it has a little bit more to do with controlling the masses to make sure that the name, the brand, looks good at all costs. So now you go back into a lot of this hiding behind the scenes stuff. Okay? So now we move into the Pluto in Aquarius generation, or the Neptune in Aquarius generation, and that was from 1997 to 2011. So now the churches have gone on the airwaves, right? Remember Greg Laurie and all the Bible studies and the Bible Answer Man all over the radio. Okay, we have Billy Graham doing huge crusades. That's Aquarian energy, bringing the masses together, coming down to be saved. One word, one answer, one commitment, and it's all okay. Now it's all okay. We're going to go to heaven. We don't have to worry about hell, and then we begin this process of trying to live like Jesus. So, we've got this, we're free now. We're free from all concern about anything, because if anything happens, boom, we're going to heaven. And, sin now, our accountability, we kind of blame it on the devil, right? We can blame it on Satan because, he had made us backslide and we listened to him. And when we come back into the fold, everybody's so excited because, we've had victory over Satan. And so we start to believe, that this is our spirituality, that we're constantly running from ourselves, or we're running from another influence, or blaming another influence. Meanwhile, we're falling back into the perfect, okay, because Virgo loves to be perfect outer picture. We go to church, we do the perfect little thing, we're the perfect little servants, aren't we? Meanwhile, what is going on? Things are starting to really fall apart. Why? Because we're no longer up in those little upper rooms, having those little small groups of accountability. We're lost in the mega church. Just to get into the church from the parking, you might as well have the hugest episode in the car with your family because somebody has road rage. And you get into the church and you're exhausted because it took so long to get in there. Because the churches are so huge. But it's a big business. It's a huge business, and nobody can deny it. Nobody can deny it. And so now you have these leaders. Now, am I saying all big churches do not have really good pastors or really good teachers or all of those things, or have done really amazing things? I've been a part of those things. I've seen amazing things happen. But where money is, where power is, it corrupts. We know the ego can't help get in the way, because if you have any little member that maybe questions something you said on the pulpit, questions something you did at the family, question where they saw you, they're out. Because you now have too much to lose, because you can't kill the brand name. You can't kill the name. You can't now, again, we're back into bondage of not being able to deal with the truth. Okay? So, let's talk about a couple little things here that I think are important to seeing the breakdown of the megachurch, of the Jesus movement. Okay? In 2003, okay, Neptune, Uranus, I'm sorry, you guys, I'm fidgeting. In 2003, Uranus moved into Pisces, okay? It's a 7-year period. So now you get this Uranus energy, okay? Opposing Uranus and Virgo, which, boom, activated the Pluto and Virgo generation. See, these planets activate each other. You guys have to understand that we go through periods of time and then something comes along and boom, it activates us. So now all of a sudden Uranus and Pisces is opposing all of that, because Pisces, we know, really represents the age of Jesus, really represents the compassion in the heart of Jesus as we know him, as the message goes. And so we have this huge movement, okay? We have this huge movement now of everybody that have gone through this transition and into this movement and giving their life to Jesus, evangelizing, often losing their family because they're not believers. I'm talking about kind of just the Jesus movement that, on the outside, really seemed, pretty not too conservative. But we also know that right alongside this was many religions, many churches, Mormonism, Jehovah's Witnesses, we have Walter Martin during this time with the Kingdom of the Cults. We have many of these types of mega church concepts everywhere. Some being more conservative, some being more brainwashing, some being more controlling. But they all said the same thing. You can't think on your own because you'll be going to hell. Just one word. Just one word. And unfortunately, we're seeing, and I'll explain this more. I'm so excited about all this, you guys, because there's so much to talk about. Because we are now experiencing Neptune and Pisces, it is opposing all of these ideas. It's as if Jesus is coming back and saying, now what did you do with my message? Yeah, you had a great idea, and boy, you made an awesome business out of it. But where are my people now? Where are the people? When Uranus moved into Pisces in 2003, opposing everything that was this structure, is when you saw the church fall, is when you saw members going into depression, is when you saw suicides in the church, is when you saw deception coming to the surface. Okay? You have this Uranus saying, wait a minute. Is this really the message of Jesus? Is this really the message of compassion? Is this really the message of forgiveness? Or is this man-made attempt, okay, Uranus and Virgo, to control the people, to put everything in a little compartmentalistic box and make it about money? Okay, see? Because Neptune and Pisces is not about money. It's about a message of spiritual freedom. Okay? So 2003 to about 2008, along with Saturn, when it went into Virgo from 2007 to 2009, it broke down the Pluto and Virgo generation. It kicked our asses. Okay? Divorce, bankruptcy. We were living like the Pluto and Leo generation, but we didn't have the money. So we were getting credit cards, we're all trying to go to church. We can barely get our kids there. We can barely get in the traffic to get there. So now we're backsliding, right? And suddenly we're getting lost. Suddenly now we're feeling the Uranus and Pisces energy that's having us stirring up all of this stuff and helping us see through the veil. And we can't see it because that would mean that our whole life was a lie. That would mean that we might have drinking the Kool-Aid. That would have meant that somehow, we lost it. And now we don't know what to do. So now you have this huge epidemic of our generation on pain medication, trying to dull the confusion and the pain, trying to heal from broken families because it all fell apart. The pastors and the pastors' wives were having affairs because they were so busy running all over, going to other countries, to minister, that they're leaving their families behind because there's so much money and so much expectation coming into the church that there's no accountability anymore. Man got in the way. Was the original message something good? I'll let you guys decide. Obviously, we needed that message. But right now, as we speak, Neptune is in Pisces, as if Jesus is coming back to say, wait a minute. Wait a minute. What's really important? You mean you've completely separated from families because they weren't believing as you were? You're shunning people as apostates? You're damning your children to hell? Well, this wasn't my message. This was never my message. When you read the stories of Jesus, there is a beautiful message that comes through. And it's not about, who you believe he is. I spent many years debating those things. And in the end, for me, it's about what I know is the message of compassion, of love. But it's all being blown up right now because Pluto, as we speak, is in Capricorn. Now, the good news is Pluto in Capricorn and Pluto in Virgo have a beautiful harmonious energy, okay? They're sister signs, all right? But the heart of the Virgo, the heart of our generation, those of us born 1957, okay, to 1972, I'll make sure I get that right. We have a heart to serve. We were a little bit taken advantage of. And we came out pretty broken. All the pieces, we spent years building, that Rubik's Cube, figuring it out. Really got blown up. And Pluto and Capricorn blew up the foundational structures of everything we've ever known. Pluto and Virgo generation have children that are Pluto and Scorpio generation. Okay, and these are topics we can continue on, you guys. So the Pluto and Scorpio generation are our kids. And they're the ones that I went, excuse me, we're all going to church, but yet my dad beats me. Or we're all going to church and, we have these issues at home that nobody's looking at. And the Pluto and Scorpio generation are blowing it up, opening the veil, looking at the truth. Thank God. We have to be able to be honest with our kids. I mean, this is like a really hard conversation for me to have, you guys, because I don't want to get emotional. I was in that movement. It was my life. I know the Bible back and forth. I believed it and I loved it, and it was a movement. It was a wave of energy. We were all looking for something to make everything okay. And now, as Pluto is in Capricorn and Neptune is in Pisces, we're getting healing and we're still able to say, you know what, I have this relationship with something more. But it's mine now. I don't have to answer to anybody else now. And there, I understand scripture and I could go toe to toe all day long with debating scripture, and I'm not here to do that. Because I think it all has its place, and I think man interprets things as we see things through these astrological energies. With Neptune being in Scorpio during those years, fear kicked in. So many people came running down the altar, not because they knew where they were going, because they didn't want to go to hell. All right? They were running from something, but didn't even know what they were running into. I'll put some videos below of some of the documentaries during that time, and I'm listening to the kids at that time, and they're going, I just, all you need is Jesus, and it's like, mind is gone. No answer to anything else. Now, I'm not saying that you don't need a spiritual alignment in your life, a spiritual connection, but when I started studying astrology, I had to go through a whole entire condemnation thing that there was something wrong with understanding the beautiful cycles of the universe. That somehow I was worshiping the creation and not the creator, which is ridiculous. So these are brainwashing things that have happened over the years. Yes, you can take a passage of biblical thing here and say, oh, astrology is bad. Then you can go over here and, they were following the star of Jesus. Who was following? Who were the three wise men? Why did the king want to know Jesus' time of birth? Because they understood these things. During the 1960s, during this 63 to 68 Uranus-Pluto thing, astrology was wild, going crazy. And so you had this competition for three things. Sex, drugs, rock, and roll, which was filling up this need for this higher high that we were all looking for, this spiritual connection. Okay? You had, if you didn't go that direction, you went down and found a cult to follow. You drank the Kool-Aid. Some of us were a little bit more, better at drinking the Kool-Aid than others, right? You know, um, so I mean, you had these different options, or you just escaped it all. Why? And I'm going to leave us with this thought. For the seventh house of the Pluto and Virgo generation, it falls into Pisces. Seventh house is this identity. It's the Virgo Pisces axis. Pisces can be nebulous. Pisces can be delusional. Pisces is the cult leader. Okay? Pisces is the drink the Kool-Aid follower. That's something that the Pluto and Virgo generation has to deal with. Now that Neptune is in our seventh house of partnerships, he's coming back now after 165 years. Do you know that 165 years ago, when Neptune was in Pisces last, is when we had the birth and the rise of leaders like Charles Russell of the Jehovah's Witnesses and Joseph Smith of the Mormons. Those churches were founded 165 years ago. Okay, when Neptune was in Pisces, these guys had these amazing vision that only they had. And they gained mass, followers. And it was all about who was Jesus, right? 165 years later, go on YouTube and look up the blogs now of Jehovah's Witnesses who are, generational children now of years and years and years, 165 years of this church coming out. Neptune and Pisces is coming out with the truth of some of the things that were really wrong with this. Okay? And they're crying and they're confused. And they were told that, they couldn't have blood transfusions. And they were told that they couldn't take care of themselves at the doctor. And they couldn't have birthdays. They don't know how to function in society because they were brainwashed. Because if you tell people not to go to the doctor, to just trust in the Lord or something's wrong with you, they're not going to spend their money at the doctor, but they will spend their money at the church. If you believe in something as radical as no blood transfusions, you're not spending a lot of money on keeping people alive. So these are things to look at. This is the deep, dark psychological stuff we have to look at, you guys. I'm here right now, a 1968er. I'm trying to find my place. Because when Uranus moved into Pisces, and for me, it's really kind of intense because I'm a Pisces rising with the moon in Pisces and a sun in Virgo in this crazy Virgo lineup. So this religious thing is like deeply rooted within me, this whole concept. And now here I am out here. Uranus has completely turned my life upside down. I'm talking about astrology. And so I've had to come to freedom and peace in my spirituality and stand up for myself. Because I could easily be, look, she's gone off the deep end, she's in the occult, and yet what's so bizarre about it is I feel like, I can see. And I love the story of Jesus. I love the message of the stars. We've been in the last 2,000 years, the age of Pisces, the message of Jesus. We needed his message. But man gets in there, and oh boy, that's why we need Pluto to blow this thing up about every 20 years. Okay, you guys, I know this was really long, and I appreciate if you followed me. I hope it was interesting. I want to answer some questions in my next video. So please, please, please ask me some questions. Tell me what you think. Tell me your story. And if you have specific questions, in my next video, I will be answering some questions and talking a little bit more about these concepts. If you have any other generational topic you'd like me to discuss, let me know that too. And if you'd like to get a reading with me, we can talk about these things and where we're going, how we can be successful now, because that's part 2. How can the Pluto and Virgo generation step up now and get through what we've just been through? How can we rise again? Because it's coming. So, cowgirlastrologer.com. Love you guys. Have a great day.